And hello, Jetta. How are you? Oh, darling, no sound, but you look glorious.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, welcome, my love. You are so very welcome. And look, the ambassador from Norfolk Island has joined us. Now, when did you get back, Megan? You must be shattered, mate.
I am shattered. We had 2 delays yesterday, and I am so clever. They should just give me a PhD
Yes,
because
obviously.
when I booked from Perth, I booked the Brisbane to Norfolk Island trip. I did
Yeah.
it the wrong way around. I booked Norfolk Island to Brisbane. Yeah, brilliant.
Well,
Yes, but I'm home, so it's great. And came home to find out that our gardener has died suddenly.
no.
Like, what?
It's
Yeah.
just it's just death, mate. Just don't even encourage me in goth zone. I've been so there this week. I've been so there. But Megan, darling, we wish you well. Obviously, after you've been through
Mm.
a funeral and all the experience, and of course, I watched it online. You know, representing us all for Megan and her wonderful Paul. It was a beautiful thing, Megan. It was a beautiful
Yeah,
thing. But I can
it
imagine it must have been devastating to be there.
It was, but it was also wonderful to be surrounded by so much support. And he was so loved, and that really came out. And the funeral was huge. I've never attended a funeral that big.
And so many men too. It was male dominated because of the industries, and it was just amazing to see wonderful men expressing sorrow and community.
Yeah.
It was a lovely thing. But we're so grateful you're back in one piece, and you're very precious, legendary. Lorraine's in, so I've got sort of pink and red in my top two corners with beautiful Jeddah and Jeddah's glamorousness sort of anchoring up another corner. The Dougster's in, just for a change. Dougster's eating. Good morning, Doug. Is it breakfast? Oh, thanks for that, Doug. Good
Yeah,
turquoise.
yeah, I'm running a bit late. I've had a shower and now breakfast.
Well, look, personal hygiene is crucial, Doug. Well done. The turquoise is magnificent. And the light of our lives, Joshua, is in the house. Brother, how you going? Do you want to say hi? Love you. Love you.
Good. It's good to be back. I've been teaching the last few weeks, but yeah, on holidays today, so glad I can make it.
Well, we're thrilled, and obviously we may talk about that today too. Ruth is in. Ruth. Oh, yeah, she's about to. Hold on. We'll drink together, Ruth. Cheers, Ruth. Cheers, my darling.
Cheers.
How are you going, Angel?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Really, really good. So, and the thesis is going well. I've been sending good energy to the universe for you.
Thanks. It's been helping then because I've
Oh,
definitely been making some progress, I think.
that's fantastic. If I'm sending good energy and like the field workers just hit the toilet, then I know I must be doing a weird inversion. So, Ruth, you're precious. Ben's in. Ben, you are legendary. It's lovely to see you, mate. Fantastic. Kia ora.
Great to see you, Kia ora.
Oh, excited. Lovely Eleanor's in. Beautiful Maeve. Bree, who's about to have a super famous week next week. Sita's in with us. Our Liam's joined us in the middle of the night. We love you, Liam. How great was that article, mate? How great was that article? How great was that article?
Oh, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Tara, as well. Like it's out there now. It's had 600 hits in 48 hours and a lot of commentary. And me and my co-author actually said, like, wow, we didn't imagine this to be our hit. We thought it would actually be our research expertise that would be our hit, but no.
Liam, I mean, first thing is, I was going to ask you this week, by the way, are you comfortable if I send it around Twitter, noting the conversation we had last week?
Yeah, that's fine. My co-author, we spoke about this because of the pylons on Twitter, which
Yes.
that article could attract a
Yes.
potential pylon. But it's been okay so far. When we've kind of just got we've just kind of give the attitude, fuck around, find out,
Yeah,
to
mate,
these
absolutely.
people.
Yeah.
Um,
And you just don't know. The only other thing I'd say to you, Liam, and it's, as the old nana of the parish speaking, you never know which bit of your research is going to take off. I know people do all the proxies, Ruth, about, the tiering of journals and this authorship and this combination, blah, 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 blah. But the truth is, Liam, you never know which one will take off because it's not about us. It's about the audience.
Yeah, and sorry for my creative use of language there. Apologies.
Oh, look,
But
we,
yeah,
we
that was our
we
first
haven't heard language like that at all ever. We are delicate Scots guardsmen in this call. You know that, Liam.
Yeah, I did actually want to speak about my co-author who we've all got so much love and support for. They've been enveloped at work about redundancy potentially. So it's been a good week and a bad week. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and Liam, obviously, I think your presence on these calls have been so benevolent and so important for not only Australian students but students around the world to actually grasp and see in a granular fashion the instability of higher education and the consequences of it on humans. And, you know, just we have to just keep reminding people. A great mate of mine, some of you may have seen on Facebook, Adrian Martin, who I've known for about 35 years, sort of said to me, "Oh, Tara, you know, isn't it sad what's happening to older academics? You know, if you're over," did you see that post, Lorraine? I haven't replied to it yet, but he said, you know, wasn't it sad what's happening if you're over 55 or over 60 or over 65, you know, you're not able to get an academic job. And I'm sort of saying, firstly, that's always been the case. Secondly, that's always been the case for all workers. Why should academics be special and you know, different? But also, Liam, we need to grasp there's a very, very small group of academics now that have lived in one country, in one city, in a couple of universities, and have been able to have a career. I mean, that is a very, very tiny group now. And the rest of us are scratching about like rats trying to hang onto a sinking ship, really, Liam.
Absolutely. When I was talking to my co-author, we were just trying to come up with strategies. So it was meant to be my research day today at work, but I ended up scratching around trying to find posts. You know, I was like, if you want me to email these people for you, if you want me to speak to them, if you want me to do this, if you want me to do that, and I'm just like trying to come up with strategies. And
Yeah.
I just find it crazy, Tara, that you know, I'm supporting my colleague. We're both at the same point in our career, more or less. We finished the PhD at the same time. Whereas, you know, you provide a platform for your students and also, you know, your colleagues, your junior colleagues, and, you know, you hand the baton over. But where is this happening? You know, in my colleague's case, it's really not. It's the likes of me and a few others who are quite early career
Yeah.
who are trying to support. And where are the more kind of senior voices, you know, that speak about social justice in conference presentations? It's like, well, where are those voices now when people are being cut, you know, like low hanging fruit? So it's really offended me this week in other ways, as well as been a good week for the publication. But yeah, it has offended me, certain practices.
Liam, you're a very, very wise man. And Josh, you must find this too. There's a lot of talking going on. I mean, academics, we talk for a living, we're paid to talk. A lot of talking about social justice and blah, blah, and people doing sort of Twitter pylons or aggro stuff on people about you're not doing enough and so forth. And actually, yeah, the talking is not the work. It's the quiet stuff. It's not being seen to be doing work. It's actually quietly helping people. I think that's where it's all got a bit confused, Liam. People, I mean, I don't know whether it's the Instagram culture, platform management. People just, if they can't be seen to be doing the right thing, then they don't do it.
I know, and I've never failed to be disappointed, but you know, my colleague who is a junior colleague, and there's like the lack of support, and it's just like you're out there on your own, and they're going to be teaching a program now with 4 people to 300 students, so you know that's not sustainable.
No. And Liam, mate, I think that's the difference. As someone who is a career academic, you know, started in this gig when I was 21, that's the difference now. The cuts. I worked in a university where there were 4 restructures in 7 years, right? Cut. And they were all devastating. But now we've reached a point where we haven't got coverage for undergraduate teaching. So I don't know how this end game will play out, brother. I don't know. I'm writing on it, but I don't know how it's going to play out. I mean, Josh, have you got a view on the arc and the trajectory of this?
Nothing particularly positive or buoyant. I think, yeah, we're just sort of at the end of the world and we're getting to try and jump on the rung at that stage. So yeah, it's rough.
And Josh, is it mindset? Because again, I've had to get into the zone where, and luckily, inverted commas, I've never had the sort of 20 years in one posh institution where everything has gone well and people have behaved ethically and with great decency. I've never had that. So it just means my experience is, how are we going this week? Are we all right? Can we get a month out of this? Can we get 3 months out of that? And that's an interesting way to live. But I think that's how I've survived probably.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's I get where Liam's coming from, and I get really tired too, and I get really disillusioned some weeks. I think I enjoy groups like this because it is genuine kindness and intellectual generosity to each other, and I think that means a lot more than what people might think it does. Yeah, and so there's got to be policy change to encourage a little bit more behind the scenes kindness rather than just same old metrics that go on. Even people that are absolute saints all over Twitter and well known are not necessarily the best people once they're up close. So it's fascinating.
You are a very, very wise human. I'm so excited. We've got beautiful Jeddah in for the first time. We're thrilled to have Jeddah in. Shell's in, the light of our lives. Aren't you looking glamorous, Shell? Good morning, Shell. I love you in a bit of dark blue. That's very attractive. Oh, I don't get sound. I can't even hear you. Oh, you just go, yes, I'm fine.
Morning. Thank you.
Oh, is that all I get? Thank you very much. Thank you.
And you look beautiful too.
Thank you,
In fact, I just feel like this is like a big heart hug coming into these groups, and everything you've got, everything that's said here is just really it's an incredible little alchemy.
It is. It is sweetness. It is. And look, we need to welcome the legendary AJ who's in with us. I'm so excited to see you, AJ. You are very loved, and we'll talk. We've got a few things on the desk to talk about that people have sent in, but we'll have a little AJ moment as well. And Jules, you just did a comment that I didn't see that just flashed up. So Jules, we'll finish off the intro conclusion conversation to see if there's anything else. But Jules, talk to us. What's your line about people leaving work? Because this is obviously your research. This is what you do for a living.
There is so much research out that shows that people leave because of the toxic nature of their environment, not because they want a better job or more money or less hours or whatever. The key reason for leaving is because of the environment that you're in, that you just can't tolerate it.
Yeah.
And women are more likely to do that, even though they are disadvantaged by doing it. Yeah. And it's weird because in Australia, when search consultants look at a CV and they see people moving more frequently than once every 5 or 10 years, they get freaked out, which is crazy because the rest of the world, people move every 2 years at least, because they're trying to get upwards. But the culture is just, and culture is the wrong word for it. I wish we had another word, but it's a killer. And Josh and Liam, and it's just, I'm so sorry, because you would have thought that by now it would have changed. It's like we know the answers to it, and yet somehow it just keeps going, and cream does not rise to the top in leadership.
Another noun rises to the top, Jules. 2 different objects rise to the top. And look, the lovely Jeddah, did I just see you've been an EAP counsellor? This is such a precious organisation. Do you want to just say hello before we go to the intro and stuff? And look, you have, I'm just getting quite emotional because so many of my mates have been discarded onto the scrap heap, and your colleagues have saved their lives.
Yeah, Yama guys, how you going? I'm an Aboriginal counsellor, narrative therapist, but to support my PhD, as wonderful as the stipend is, got to do a bit of extra work there to, pay the bills. And look, if, on a normal week, I talk to 18 people, right? So 6 people a day, right? 3 days a week. And honestly, 95% of those people are talking to me about their relationships with colleagues, nothing to do with the work with their clients, career progression, anything like that, like 95%. And the thing is that what they often get told, and I can only talk from my experience, but what I often get told, what they get told is like, oh, just ring EAP. Just ring a counsellor. They'll figure it out. And it's look, as great as I am as a counsellor, that's not the solution.
Oh, Jetta, what a triumph you are. I mean, does anybody else feel like we are so privileged to be with you today, my love? It's unbelievable. But can I also say, Jetta, where I get upset is the offloading of offboarding strategies too. So, I mean, Jules and I are of an age where we remember if someone, and I had to do this when I was the head of school at Bolton, I had to sack 84 people in a 6-month period. And bits of my soul I will never recover. I will burn in hell for having to do that. But there's something important about sitting with a human while you're doing that, looking them in the eye, they're having a cry, you're having a cry, and making a promise to them that we will get you into work and I will walk with you and I will write those references. And every one of those humans at Bolton got another job. But you know, you lose your soul when you do that. But these days, the sort of the emails and the multiple mitigations of being sacked stop a human having to look at another human and going, I am aware I have ruined your life and there are consequences to you and your family for having done that. Sorry, Jetta, talk to me.
Indeed. No, I was going to say, Tara, it's interesting that you use the word human. And can I say that, you know, I happen to be in the counselling industry, but regardless of what industry, you know, that you're in, if there's one thing that I've realised, if you're going to talk to someone about, you know, something as big as that, talk to them. Indeed. I myself, I mean, I used to be a quality auditor many years ago, and I remember, you know, the boss saying, oh, you know, can you come in and we'll have a chat? Yeah, no problem, come in. Sitting in the office. And I'm like, well, what are we going to have a chat about? And he said, oh, I'm just waiting on a phone call. And honestly, like my job was made redundant that day through HR talking to me on the phone while the boss, like, you know, just like wrote on a piece of paper. And look, when you get to know me, you'll know that I pretty much throw the F and the C word around, you know, pretty often. And in that moment, you know, when HR put the phone down, I felt like a piece of crap. I felt like I was absolutely nothing, and that the 15 years that I put into that organisation meant nothing. Indeed. So Tara, you know, with your story, I'm hoping that at least the people that, you know, you were talking to felt as though they were human beings. After the phone call, I stood up and the boss said, is there anything I can do for you? And I said, yeah, you can F and roll over and die, you know, which is the attitude I felt at the time. But I took that attitude with me. So that's the attitude that I had to take with me to find other work, you know. So however you speak to someone, it's going to affect them, right, in the steps that they're taking to find other work. Yeah. And this is the thing with the fellow that was, you know, terrible with names, but the fellow that was just starting there, you know, talking there with his colleague. So not only, you know, do they not have work, but now they have this feeling that all of the efforts that they put in, all those, you know, additional hours, whatever, mean nothing. Yeah. And they're going to take that, you know, like to another job.
Yeah. And so, Jerry, I thank you for saying that. You've healed me a bit today, because we all, those of us that have been in middle management, which is just, you know, hell on earth, basically. And, you know, our hands are dirty and, you know, we're covered in blood most of the time, right? And all I can do, you know, summoning the old trope from the Death Doller, is hold the space, sit with the human. And often, Jetta, I'm one of those terrible people, because I haven't got your expertise or Lorraine's, is so I have to now sack somebody, and I start crying. I start crying before I start speaking to them. So in some ways,
not good, Tara.
Well, I don't know, but in some ways it shows it matters and they matter, and no one leaves the office until, so no one leaves angry. It's like, this is what's happened. This is the honest situation. Now let's get on this whiteboard and come up with some concrete steps so that we move together. But,
when you said holding the space, that's exactly what it is. And, you know, if you need to have tears, that's okay, as long as you don't become the focus of the conversation. No. That's what I mean. Yep.
Oh, that's exactly right. Because you know, as someone who does Death Doller work, it's not about you. Your grief is not your business. You know, your grief is your business. Their grief is their business, right? But people need to know that they matter and their presence will be missed.
Absolutely. You know, just a last thing on that. Every single person here, every single person is stories and contexts and reasons and mistakes and successes, right? I'm not just a woman and a wife and a mum and a Yuwalarai, right? I'm Jettison Wells. And I've, everything that you say to me affects, who that is. So, as I said, like if you're having an uncomfortable conversation with anyone, please don't do it by email or phone,
Oh.
please. Try to do it face to face.
Yeah, and have courage. And it is uncomfortable. It is terrible work to
Mm.
do. But you know what?
Mm.
Eyeball another human and hold that space for them. Oh, you're amazing, mate. We'll go to Lorraine and then Kylie. Who knew we'd be going here today? Ben, this is unbelievable. Let's go to Lorraine and wonderful Kylie.
I did. I just a couple of points from that conversation this morning. So, as many of you may remember, don't know why you would, but last July I resigned from a lecturing position after just over 5 years of a very toxic bullying environment, not only to myself but to students as well, which was just, I could honestly, you would be shocked if I was to tell you the treatment that students suffered. It was abysmal. Anyway, that aside, I also provide EAP services, Jeddah, and I do it online. But I work for a really fantastic company that's called Unmind. And all the companies that subscribe to them, their people have unlimited sessions, which is quite unusual in EAP services because most are 3 sessions. But this unlimited, what I've noticed, the culture with all the groups that, because they're mainly construction, there's a few legal companies, there's a few other different sorts of companies that have subscribed to them. Not once has there been a workplace issue, not once. With all those clients, that there's something in that's remarkable. That they all say they feel very supported by the structure. So Lend-Lease is one of the biggest subscribers. So how amazing is that? And they're from all over different states, different areas of working for that company, but not one of them have had a negative experience with management. I've literally been blown away by that. And I'm sort of thinking, I might need to sort of document this on the side here because there is some research in that. How is it in this kind of industry that you're not seeing that? And you move to the industry that we desperately want to be in, because I love teaching. I want to get back into that field, but I have this big hesitation because do I really want to go back into that kind of toxic environment? Anyway, that was just my little piece.
Look, I think that's stunning, but it's a great embodiment, isn't it, Lorraine, of if you just stop putting your knee on somebody's throat and give them the opportunity to breathe and speak and resonate, then once that pressure's off, one feels better in one's context.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would be documenting that. That's unbelievable. Kylie, then to beautiful Liam. Go, Kyles. Morning, Kyles.
Morning, everyone. Again, I've been through past history of just the last job, but also a job previously, 2 or 3 jobs before, where I have used EAP, and I will bang the drum, say people use it, especially with organisations that give it to you as part of your package. Use it. It's great. So thank you, Jeddah. Thank you, Lorraine, for all that wonderfulness. But I think we need to remember that it's not just like it's bad enough for the people that are directly involved, but having been in a place just recently where the broader branch had a whole stream pushed out and made redundant, 3 times we witnessed, and as a leader within that group, we didn't even know it was happening. We just thought the senior of that group was on a couple of days off. Turns out she'd been given the arse, but we weren't even told till an email turned up. The rest of the team, about 3 weeks later, got their email, and after that, they then got the email saying they hadn't been redeployed within the organisation. The hardest part was every time this email turned up, none of us knew, and I could see, you would all remember that window that I had behind me. I could see my team, and they would all just gasp at the same time I'm reading it, and I'm like, I've got to support it. So each of those 3 times, the next 2 days was spent meeting with all of them because they all needed to talk. So it's not just the directly people, it's the Liams of the world that are witness it, that are part of it, that are affected as well, that we need to support.
Oh, Kylie, you're amazing. And look, I'll share one story before I go to Liam that comes from my great mate, Jackie Ewart, Professor Jackie Ewart at Griffith. And some of you may remember Griffith University had a big restructure, I think about 4 years ago. And about a quarter of the academics, and this is pre-COVID, about a quarter of the population of academics were removed from the organisation. And I've got a lot of mates there, and Jack was telling me people were refreshing their emails. I'm getting upset saying it, refreshing their email from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m, refresh, waiting for the restructure email to arrive. So waiting to be sacked. So Jackie, I was sitting with her, remotely, and she was just every couple of minutes refreshing the email to see if she'd been sacked between just after 3 and 5. And at 5:01, we refreshed a few more times and we went, wow, she's safe.
Wow. That's shocking. This is people's mental. To have people have to do that for 2 hours, like that's just disgusting. And it'd be interesting, like Lorraine, you mentioned about the construction group and having worked in that area. I would love to, if you ever do that research, I'd love to be involved, because is it because it's very union based? They're not game to do that because they know the unions would be in the next day. I don't know. It'd be really interesting.
Oh, I'm interested in that. No, I'd love to read that piece too. Oh, so Liam, you started us off on this journey. Who knew we'd end up here? Where do you want to finish us off, Liam?
I just wanted to say solidarity to Professor Jackie Ewart, a great humanity that when she interviewed you on your 300th vlog, and she burst into tears saying that she can't believe in the project anymore of the academic life because of everything that has happened, and planning for the future, that humanity, that we need to see from leaders, was really there. So, my love and respect to Jackie as well.
She won't mind me saying that she's been damaged. She's been damaged by higher education, as I've been, with the same age, and she's been able to be a little bit more stable in Queensland and work in Queensland. But it's been a pretty shocking experience for her. Now, Kyle's, we're going to say something.
Can we also just say, if she is watching this at a later date from her rest bed, hi, Jackie.
Yes. So Jack has been wounded in the late capitalist battle, but she will be upright soon. Now, Jules, I was going to go to you to talk about, we'll talk exactly with what you're going to talk about, and then I just want to talk about the intro and conclusion and the work we've done the last few weeks, if it's helped you. So, Jules, offer your professional commentary, and then we'll go into the intro and conclusion, if you're cool.
I just think that we actually have to come up with a solution, because that kind of executive management that sets the culture seems to be impervious to change. I worked at a university that will remain nameless, where the the head of the university left, and there was an acting person put in, and basically she trashed the joint. She left, and she's just been reappointed. And it was known and spoken about her bullying and what she'd actually done, and yet she's back there. So what does that say?
Yeah, look, and Jules, you and I, in our endless conversation about why those particular women get into positions of leadership, why those women, when there's Kylie and Lorraine and Jetta in the world, why those particular women, it's like, what do you do about it? But all I'd say, Jules, from the research that Jamie and I have done on leadership in higher education, is what we've shown, qual and quant, and I'm now at about 15 articles in just looking at higher education leadership, is the problem is it's a pinball wizard. So once you become a DVC somehow, once you get there, that you only move around in that top two echelon, right? So Jules, once you're a DVC, they only select the VCs and the DVCs from that group. So they don't get new people, they don't get innovative perspectives. They blood you at a DVC, and then they keep selecting from what can be a relatively inelegant database of leadership.
Sorry. Yeah.
Hi, AJ. I love you. So Jules, are you comfortable with that? And hi, Jamie. I was just mentioning your name in vain, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, all.
We were just talking about leadership in higher education for a change. Now, Jules, what I would like to do, just because we've got so many things on the desk, we did talk about intros and conclusions in the last couple of weeks for our colleagues that are joining us after a couple of weeks of break. So, Jules, where are you now on the intro and conclusion, noting that you're sort of writing them? Are you comfortable to go forward, or is there anything further you want to talk about?
No, I'm comfortable. It is going to be a very, very big intro, and maybe several chapters rather than just one, if you are both happy with that.
Yes. So a very, very long intro, and what you're thinking then there's your conclusion will be smaller. When you're saying multiple chapters, do you mean after the intro, Dal?
Well, I'm not sure because the intro, you know, where do I, there's so much background that has to go in and so much explanation of empty signifiers, you know, everything, leadership, merit, meritocracy, institution, you know, all of it has to be defined and defined within the context of what I'm saying. So it is, I do think it needs to be separate chapters because otherwise it's going to be really top heavy.
Okay, well, that's sensible. What you would normally do, Jules, is you do the definitional work in the intro, you separate that out, but they'll need to be all over about 5,000 words. So that's the key, because you don't want, or you can have a definitional chapter. You can have the introduction and then let's do the definitions. And considering, Jules, that your SOC is in many ways a recalibration of meritocracy, probably that makes sense. So maybe chapter 1 for you is team, let's do the definitional work. Use explanatory footnotes, Jules, move in and out of the space. See how we go. What do you think?
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes.
Brilliant. Now, wonderful City, who is the light of our lives. Now, how are you traveling? What's happening, City?
So I finally managed to work through the journal corrections to disconnect between logs last week. And now I'm in the last mile, the conclusion, and I'm lost for words. So I feel tired. And it's mainly because I feel like for every section, I've kind of built mini conclusions. And now when I reach the actual conclusion, I don't know what to say anymore. And now I'm moving things around, but every time I move the mini conclusions, then the content feels like it's hanging. And then another complication is that the original conclusion I submitted to the reviewers, they didn't like it. And now I'm trying to alter the conclusion to their taste, which is a bit weird because my original conclusion was East is East, West is West, cultures are different, the end. And they didn't like that. All 3 reviewers are like, if East is East, East and West, how do they converge? So when I tried to recalibrate it to work through convergence, which I didn't plan in the beginning, it feels like a disjointed conclusion and new material. So that's where I'm at. And I mean, I've been revisiting your lectures on conclusion and kind of how the intro and conclusion matches, but it's another hurdle because my original introduction was top heavy, but after 2 rounds of editor screening, they've made me condensed it. Yes. So it's a very short introduction because of the style of the journal. It's first paragraph is literature heavy, second paragraph tells what am I going to do, and then go straight to the content. So when I go to the conclusion, it's hard for me to kind of recap when my original first submission was a more lengthy conclusion to ease into the material. So I'm stuck at that conclusion.
Right. So what I think we do, we use the old Brabazon line, which I really need to put on a t-shirt, and we need to sell, Lorraine, and that is put the problem into the work. So if the reviewers said they don't like your East and East, West, West, people are different, sort yourself out. If they didn't like that, where, you know, I have enormous respect for that, that suggests to me the conclusion needs to configure something differently. So if you summon either metaphorically, theoretically, or just have a vibe about it, Homi Bhabha's third space. So the notion that what your research is actually showing is here are these important ideas and these important concepts, and you've given different discourses and spaces their own time, their own ability in your paper to resonate. But in the conclusion, it is clear that the interfaces, I'd be introducing words like interfaces, the movement, the mobility between ideas is ensuring really a significant emerging dialogue. That's where I'd go, because you've got all your research, and that's dovetailing it as a conclusion, and you're taking notice of what the referees said. What do you think, Sidi? Would that work?
I've tried doing kind of I called it an offshoot. An offshoot conclusion. But then how do I prevent it from becoming a new material versus insightful conclusion?
Yeah. Because And look, Sidi, I think all of us were taught when we were taught debating in primary school that the third speaker never introduces new information. Do you remember that, Mary? The third speaker never introduces new information. And of course, the actual point is, particularly in the humanities and the social sciences, the conclusion does something magical and magnificent. And what it does is it goes meta. So it doesn't perhaps introduce new ideas, but it offers this astonishing high-level commentary and interpretation of the material that preceded it. So in many ways, that's what you're doing, my love. Think about the article. I mean, there's all the stuff, all the usual triggers I use, like why should I care? Why does this matter? Who should be reading this? Why now? All of these triggers can help the conclusion. But maybe it's time to go meta and say, okay, well, this is what we've done in this article. Now, where we're at now, noting the peer reviewers, is this is the time for interface management, for collaboration, for new ways of thinking and being and speaking. Would that work? Have a go and contact us through the week, all right? Good on you, City. You're fantastic. Let's go to wonderful Maeve and Lorraine. Fantastic.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Very important discussion that we've been having, and yeah, really important how we have Liam and Joshua and how that stimulates conversation in different ways. So you just mentioned when you were just talking, I think it was with Julian, you mentioned footnotes. Now, I have never actually been taught how to use footnotes. It is just something that has never actually occurred for me. Probably the pathway with the masters and so on. So can you give me a sort of, quick hit on the essence of doing well with footnotes?
Look, I can, and I will involve Josh and Jamie as well, and maybe Ben with some law work as well here, because every discipline is different, right? So I was trained in the high humanities. Footnotes are my life. I do Chicago footnotes, right? Footnotes are elegant. They're the Jedi Knights of referencing, okay? They're precise, they're careful. You have explanatory footnotes. So you have the reference down there so everyone can see exactly where you're at in situ. So the great gift of footnotes, you have to go back to a reference list and go, I wonder what that reference is. There it is at the foot of the page. Thank you very much. Very exciting, very fabulous. Then you have an explanatory footnote. So for example, this is what I meant with Jules. So Jules has got a lot of concepts. She can get herself all wound up with 57 different applications. And Julie can say something like, I note that neoliberalism has reconfigured meritocracy, particularly since the global financial crisis. To review authors in this field, please refer to here. So if there's a secondary conversation that would over-egg the page, then an explanatory footnote is tremendous, and it confirms to the examiner, that girlfriend, she knows what she's doing, and shows that you've read it. But look, Maeve, you're using, as most of the culture is using, sadly breaks my heart, this damn Harvard. Harvard is the Darth Maul of referencing. It is the end of the culture. I think the reason why we're in the state, I blame Donald Trump on the Harvard mode of referencing. I do. I'm actually not joking. I think it's dumbing everything down. But so that's where the culture is, and that's where the journals are. So it's like, great, thanks a lot. And you can use explanatory footnotes in Harvard. You can do that. But Harvard, by its very nature, is not elegant. It's not the lightsaber. It's not an elegant weapon for an elegant age. Okay, it's a blaster. It's like, it was so 1978. Out. Right.
So can I chip in on that? How do you, because I've used Harvard a long time, and also now I'm finally got clued in on EndNotes. So I have my EndNotes set on Harvard 2024 CDU, which is a style in its own right.
Everybody's got to use Harvard. We've lost. How much have I lost, Ben, through my entire life? Yeah, so we've lost. So Harvard has won. So the force of darkness, the Sith Lords have won. So yeah.
So how do I make, given that I'm going to stay with it, how do I try to make it more elegant than it is by nature?
Oh, I just think it's really ugly. So I'm not sure, we can put some posh lipstick on it, Maeve, but it's still going to be pretty ugly. But what I would do, if you want to use explanatory footnotes, then you can, within that system, put in explanatory footnotes that can render, if you're going to use lipstick, at least it's a posher lipstick. So use Harvard, but use the explanatory footnotes that render it in situ more elegant. So I'll go to Joshua one second. Can I just check in with my mate Mary from the People's Republic of Western Australia? So obviously we use Footnotes because we are elegant Jedi. Mary, have you got anything to say about referencing?
Yeah, well, certainly with history, a lot of I use Chicago as well, because you do need to just have that little footnote because you know that someone's going to be reading it and you say something and they go, well, has she looked at this? Has she looked at that? Blah, blah, blah. So then you do a footnote and you say, this has been argued in another way here, read here, but then so-and-so says blah, blah. So, you know, you just have to. And the other thing is doing history, of course. I put together a sentence and I have used 3 different books to find out what happened to put that sentence together.
Oh.
So, you know, one book told me that this person was at this location. Another book told me that this person worked for a certain person, or that their role was such and such. And then someone's diary makes a comment about the incident. So that's how I put that sentence together. So you have to write in there, see this one for his role in the army, see this one for so-and-so's diary for comments about this incident.
See, how inspirational is that? Do you see there's 3 books that are required to write 1 sentence, right? And that's why the elegance of the footnotes are crucial. And AJ, I just saw your comment too. Yes, you can use, often you call them end notes. They are end notes, AJ. So in Harvard, what people say, and this is correct, don't mix your referencing styles. You mix your referencing styles, your examiner will fail you. I will fail you. If I see people going, what are you? What are you, girlfriend? You've got to be clear, use Harvard. But if you're then using often end notes, then do that. And you use end notes, AJ, with the Harvard reference. So you'd go, please refer to Brabazon, 2023, Hunter, 2022, right? So you put them in brackets. Nice one, AJ. Josh, mate, rescue us from the harder sciences, and we'll see what Professor Quinton, physicist to the stars, has to say. Go, Josh.
I'm glad you asked, mate, because young man from the lab sciences, my academic literacies are pretty poor. And I have no idea how to use a footnote either. Never done those things at the end of the page. I think it's wizardry. I just use the base level functions of Zotero and, try to survive. But more recently, though, I have started using, I think they're called endnotes, where they go right at the end of an article. When journals have had that flexibility, because I've found they're a really good way to preempt a counterattack to peer reviewers. So if you've written something, and you've got a final draft and you think, oh, this is beautiful, but someone's going to have a problem with this bit, but I don't want to go off track here, I put in a footnote there. And I have found it, I think it's been a really good way to improve my chances of actually getting through peer review. So I'd say, mate, as if you're looking at using them in your thesis, maybe once you've got sort of more mature drafts with it, if you think, oh, there's little points here that someone might have an issue with, that could be a good point to use a footnote in and just preempt whatever they're going to try and stab at you and block it.
Absolutely, because it's going, you haven't read it, it's not mentioned, it is in the footnote. So it's a lovely, I treat, particularly if you're using, I often refer to them as like squash footnotes. And by squash, I mean squash the game, not squash. So in other words, they hit a ball at you and you hit it back. And that's what these endnotes allow you to do. So you can rebound the critique almost using its own energy back at it. Nice one, Josh. We'll go to Jamie and then to Gay. So Jamie Quinton, scientist, physicist to the stars, any commentary about the Sith Lord and the nature of Harvard referencing style?
Yeah, thank you. I'm really grateful for everything Josh just said, because in the sciences we don't tend to use footnotes very much, and a lot of scientific journals have supplementary information that you submit. So a lot of the longer discussion actually is like a second article you have to write, provide all the data, and you do a lot of that narrative in there. But I really do appreciate that it's a limitation in literacy in the sciences, right? We should be using more of these footnotes and endnotes because, as you rightly said, and as Josh pointed out, you're telling the reader a story, and that includes your peer reviewers, and you get to head them off at the pass, as it were, by including some of the details that complexifies what you're saying, without having it in the body of the text, which is what scientists tend to do. And I'm sure you've read lots of articles and lots of material where you go, I'm confused now. They've introduced all this stuff in this one sentence and I don't know what's going on anymore. And you read it 3 or 4 times, right? So I think it's brilliant. I think I'm going to use it more in the future.
Well, of course, for the component of the work you're now doing in the applied social sciences and leadership study, which is Julie's field, footnotes are big. Explanatory footnotes are big.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I appreciated Julie's comments about, sorry, not Julie. I appreciated the comments that were made about Mary, from having multiple sources to synthesize ideas, right? The synthesis of ideas is what you're trying to communicate. That's why you're publishing what you're publishing, or you're writing your thesis.
Also, can I say, and this is obviously the next vlog I'm learning at the gym every morning, I'm actually making a point that the best of scholars leave the scaffolding in place, Jamie, that I'm arguing, and maybe I'm wrong a lot, that we need to almost get beyond the paraphrasing and the synthesis, and the honesty in a scholar is to actually leave the scaffolding, leave the sort of underwear available to be seen and checked in our sentences so that our work can be checked. So we're not just like adding 57 ingredients, giving it a stir, and then we forget that we've added carrots, right? You can actually see the carrots. Sorry, darling.
No, I was going to say you're coming up with your own idea, but if you can help the reader to understand where it came from and how you got there, it's easier for them to come with you on the journey.
Yeah, and I would argue there's a transparency in terms of research integrity to see the journey, how you got there. But that's my current obsession. Wonderful. Gay, Liam, and then Maeve. Go, beautiful Gay. Lovely to see you, my darling.
Thank you, Tara. My comment on footnoting for Mary and Maeve would be make sure that you don't put stuff in your footnotes that should actually be part of your main text. So the footnotes are supplementary, so they are, as we said, either saying the reference where you got it from or explaining things, but don't make the mistake of explaining stuff in your footnotes that should actually be part of your argument or is part of your argument.
Beautifully said, Gay. As the young people refer to it, like a sidebar. Here's a sidebar. And so that's another great way to think about an explanatory footnote. So important, but probably a second tier issue, but it demonstrates you know what you're talking about. But beautifully said, Gay. If it's important, put it in the text. If it's a sidebar, and an interesting sidebar, do that. Now, are we going to Liam next? Liam, brother, go, mate, and then to Maeve.
Yeah, I just need to comment on this as well. With the referencing and the mixture of styles and the experimental Yoko Ono experiment that's going on, laboratory experiment, as Tara would call it. So I've seen some very, very weird interpretations of my work. You know, thank you for referencing me, these people, but some very out there, adventurous interpretations of my work about young people. And Liam argues blah 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 blah, and it actually sounds a lot better than what I actually written. So that's nice. So it's not a scathing criticism, but Tara's had this in University of Google, and the mixing up of digital natives. You know, when Tara absolutely despises that terminology, and they attribute that towards the University of Google. So there's that mix-up going on there. I also had another question, which was just a bit outside of this. I've got an internal interview at work for SL to replace our AW.
Yeah.
So I need a bit of advice on that, because it's just an interview. It's not a presentation or a micro teach or anything like that. So that's a separate thing.
Well, I tell you what we'll do, we had other things to do, but I tell you what, we'll talk to Maeve, we'll talk to Gay, and then we'll talk about doing an internal interview while Jamie's still with us. I know he's got a meeting he's heading to shortly, but we have some pretty clear strategies doing an internal interview, mate. So let's go to Maeve and go to Gay. Maeve, talk to us.
All right, I'll be quick because I think that's important to hear Jamie's view on that. I just want to say, often I'm referring to chapter 1, and where I'm discussing neoliberalism plus much, much more. And so that's one of the things where, you know, would I say in a footnote, sorry to be so detailed, granular to everybody, but would I say in a footnote, this has been fully covered in chapter 1?
This has been, I'd never say nothing's fully covered, but I would say this has been addressed in chapter 1, but this particular component of the argument will continue in chapter 4. So that can go in a footnote. But again, quoting Gay, I'm pretty happy if it's a directional sentence. So that goes in the prose itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this was
Okay.
discussed in the previous chapter. It's coming again in chapter 4, so that it's orienting the examiner. So that's not a footnote. That can go in the prose itself, Maeve.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you all.
Fantastic. Well done, you. Beautiful, Gay. Talk to us.
Something that Liam said, I actually found a citation of my PhD thesis, which has not been published, so I'm not sure, you know. So I actually looked up the document. I didn't say it. So he plucked it out of the air. I did not say what he said I said. And his publication had nothing whatsoever to do with anything that of my thesis. So the point I wanted to make was, when you're doing a footnote, make sure it is relevant, it is important that you include it, and that you don't fudge it.
And the thing is, well said, Gay. And the thing is, I was smiling so broadly when Liam was speaking, because research has shown, because information literacy is what I do, and there's a shocking statistic, Liam, like of all the reading that's being done, like 68%. I mean, it's some crazy figure. 68% of academics only ever read the abstract. Only ever read the abstract, right? So when they're citing something, they've read 4 sentences, gone, yeah, I know what that's about. I know what that's about. And so then you get the weird reference, which, I've mentioned digital natives at some point, going, it is a force of darkness in the culture. Do not use this concept. And then people go digital natives, Brabazon 2015, right? So it's madness. And it's called reading. So read everything, read the fully fleshed argument, but that's why it's happening, Liam. Now, Jamie, I'm conscious. Let's get Josh up on this too. Now, team, this is, and oh my God, and Julie, who is, of course, the expert on appointments. This is what Julie does for a living. So let's talk about you're doing an internal interview. Okay, so you're in a uni in some form, part-time contract, whatever, and you're having to then apply and do an interview with people that you know to get a different role. Okay, now this is it seems unbelievably easy because the job should be yours, but there are clear tips for punters that people do wrong. Now I'll do the first one, Jamie, and you can take over, because we've seen great mates of ours do this. Now, Liam, you may know these people very well. You may know in great detail what they're talking about. Don't make assumptions. Answer the question fully, and don't pretend that they know you. They know. Assume that they're Robert from the bloody coffee shop. You don't know them from anything, right? So answer the question fully, and don't make any assumptions that they know you, mate stuff. Jamie, go.
Yep. That's number one, rule one. So it's happened to me a few times. And it happens to all of us. Don't assume that your reputation will get you through, that the deep knowledge of you will be summoned and used in your favor. If you can manage to somehow treat it like you've applied to this for the very first time, you're new to the institution, and you go hard, you'll have that extra thirst for the job. You'll be showing them that you're keen, you've done your homework. Use your knowledge of the institution to your advantage, but wield it. Don't let them do the thinking for you.
Brilliant. Yeah. And
thank you so much for that advice. That's what I was kind of thinking this myself. And I've spoke to Alison about this, because it's an internal post.
Yeah.
And it's to replace Alison in her senior lecturer job. And I think that there are other people who've gone for it as well, who might be in a stronger position from another faculty. So, that could happen. And I've been warned that that's a real possibility. I've also been told as well about my progression, because I'm near progressing towards SL. In the contract that I negotiated when I started at the institution. They've said, oh, if it doesn't happen this time, then, wait for progression. But I've kind of just, took Tara's advice here and, the dead man's shoes post,
Dead man's shoes.
jump at it. You have to jump at these opportunities.
Yeah.
I know that I'm nowhere near as seasoned as the incumbent post, our colleague who's leaving. But hopefully I'll be able to bring something different to the table.
And that's right. So don't worry about the seasoning. Don't worry about that. But they could be very much wanting fresh eyes, new ideas. Absolutely. So Liam, you've got to go in there all guns blazing, mate. You got to give yourself a couple of cups of coffee and be up for it and want it and be enthusiastic and be really edgy and ready for it. So you can't assume it's going to be yours, because that's how you miss out. You can't connect A to D assuming that they know what B and C is, and you've really got to show enthusiasm. Also, make sure before you go in, you know who is interviewing you, Liam. Have they given you the list?
Yeah, they have. So it's my current line manager, the head of school, who encouraged me to go for it.
Right.
And I'm somebody who's a pedagogue on behalf of the academic development team. So they'll be granularly quizzing what I know about pedagogy and education. But the interesting thing is that like a lot of the research stuff that I do and a lot of the side hustles that I'm associated with professional associations like the PSA, they don't actually know I do that. So I can make this point, there's a lot that they don't know about that I do also at faculty level.
Brilliant.
With the research team.
It'll make a real difference. Go, Jamie, and then I'll talk about conflict of interest. Go, Jamie.
So Liam, as an internal applicant, you're more likely to sell yourself short than not. If you know that and you mitigate that when you get your mindset going into the interview, remember that, right? Don't assume these people are going to give you the benefit of the doubt. In fact, assume they're not going to give you the benefit of the doubt and go harder. I just want to remind you that when you get to an interview stage, it doesn't matter whether it's internal or external, the application process is about you. You say, I've got this background, I've got this knowledge, and then the interview is about them. Yeah. So don't make it about you, make it about how you can fit the role and excel the organization, right? If you remember that, and also remember your comment about your lack of confidence, I don't know if I'm the most experienced person, etc. An interview panel has to measure not just ability and background and experience, but also potential.
Right.
So if you feel that you don't have the background, show them the potential.
Yeah.
That was my 2 cents. I'm Jamie Quinton. Back to you.
And you've got it. You could easily. You would have, if you'd applied from outside, you would have got it, Liam. Just make sure, and we're going to go to Joshua, who may indeed be finishing us off. And Julie, thank you for the commentary you've been offering via the comments. But Liam, just make sure conflict of interest is properly handled. When these internals happen, they're often an absolute mess. And the idea that your current boss is on the panel, bits of my small intestine came out of my ear when you said that. So be really, let's hope in the British system they still have, everyone declares their conflict of interest. Make sure that's properly documented, and that will make a real difference. Josh, then Kylie, and we'll be done. Josh, talk to us, brother.
2 things. Yeah, I agree with, I think all the advice given is excellent. I just wanted to say, Liam, it does work. I went through one of these internal roles once and I was successful. I thought I actually, really knocked it out of the park, and it turns out I only won by 0.5 of a point on a 110 point scale for this particular role. So like, it is still competitive, but it's possible. So I think, just go for it. And I just wanted to quickly go back to a couple of people saying that, people are poorly citing their work and they're getting poor representations of their work. I think it's important to also think about the opposite. So people who do a good citation. When I just changed supervisors and I got published, the CEO of Obesity Australia emailed me on an article that I just published and just congratulated me and said, I think you've nailed it. I think you've done a great topic. And it was probably one of the most defining moments of my whole candidature. So I try and do that for everyone now that does a good citation. And it's a great way to build up a network, especially if you are struggling to get that in your own institute. Yeah.
Brilliantly said and brilliantly done, Josh. I absolutely agree with you. We'll finish off with the legendary Kylie. Calls.
Just 3 points for Liam, having been on a number of panels before, both ex-industry and in academic. tell them what your skill is. How have you used that skill in past? Give them examples and then use that example of what you could do for them using that same sort of example. So you're showing that skill base, usage, and what you could do for them. That's it.
How brilliant is that? This is the skill. This is how it moves to the current role. That's how you do dead man's boots. Colleagues, I'm absolutely thrilled. We missed the wonderful AJ talking about what happens when you're changing supervisory panels. Can I ask an enormous favour that we all make that a bit of a focus next week? So during the candidature, what happens when you change supervision for the legendary AJ? We love you, AJ. Colleagues, I will see many of you in Right Club. And Liam, good luck, brother.
Good luck.
Good luck, mate. We're with you. See you soon. Fantastic.